Hey everybody, I'm Chris Manning, and this is the Royal Blue and Burnt Orange 2 podcast. And this week, BYU takes on Utah Tech, and we are going to kind of preview that game. But more we're going to talk about the fact that it is senior day and that many of the players for BYU are playing in the last game at LES. Also, we're going to be kind of talking about what players do we think are going to leave early, go into the draft, and take an early preview of next year's roster. So with that, let's get started. So as many of you are aware, BYU is going to be recognizing around 32 seniors at Saturday's game. This is going to include the 13 seniors who are out of eligibility, along with all of those juniors and COVID juniors who possibly may be playing in their last game. Not a whole lot have officially declared that it's their last season. We'll go through over who has said so far that this is going to be it for them. Who do we think is going to redshirt possibly and come back next year? And headed off to the draft. Now what I've done, I've created a spreadsheet and I'm going to go over it. And I've separated the players by classes. So we've got those who we know are in their senior year and the last year, the players who have 1 year of eligibility after this year, 2 years, 3 years, and then also the players that BYU has in the recruiting pipeline from the 20, 21, and 22 class who are not on the roster this year. All right, so let's go ahead and get to that now. All right, if you're watching this on a mobile, it may be a little bit tough to see, but I've got this spread up and I'm going to kind of go over it. So this section here in the darkest blue, those are all the seniors coming into the year who are playing in the last year. Now, obviously, Chaz Ayu, I believe the intent at the beginning of the year was allow him to recover, get healthy. He was going to play in the final 4 games, redshirt, and come back next year. Unfortunately, it looks like Chaz Ayu suffered yet another injury. So far, everything I've read says that he plans on coming back. Malik Moore broke his hand. Decided to redshirt, and as far as everything I've read, he's planning on coming back again next year as well. The question mark right now is Gunnar Romney. Now, from everything that Gunnar had said prior, going into this year, going in last year, it seemed like this was going to be his last year, and his intent was to go to the NFL. Unfortunately, he had that freak injury with a lacerated kidney. Only has played in 2 games so far. I wouldn't expect he hasn't been practicing this week, so he may be done for this year and just decided that he's going to go ahead and take his red shirt. Obviously, there's not a whole lot to play for at this point, and it's probably just best for him to get healthy. So far, what I read today is that the rumor mill going around is that Romney does intend to redshirt and come back next year, and I think this is the best choice for him. Now, if we go into those players here in this next grouping, these were the juniors coming in who had 1 year of eligibility. Now, I've gone in those players in yellow. Those are the 4 players that are most likely heading off to the league and going to declare for the draft. That's Puka Nacua, Jaron Hall, Blake Freeland, and Clark Barrington. Now, Puka hasn't said for sure. Now, Jaron was pretty adamant that this was going to be his last year, and I believe Blake Freeland and Clark Barrington have made it pretty clear, although not officially, that they're going to go for the draft, and that's good. Blake Freeland's probably going to be the highest drafted player in this class. According to PFF, he's the number 51 player on the board. He's probably a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Now, Puka, unfortunately, there's a really deep wide receiver class, and so Puka has the skill set. He's obviously the best player on the skill position team. But he may not get drafted until 5th, 6th, and maybe even 7th round just because of some of the injuries he's had. He's got the talent. Do I think that Puka would be served best in coming back and maybe he could improve his draft stock next year, playing against in the first year in the Big 12 and showcasing that his elite talent is not just because of the competition that BYU has played, but because he actually does in fact have that elite talent. But again, at the same time, if you're fairly confident you're going to get drafted, and you don't think you can move up more than a round or 2, it may make sense just to go ahead and go and get that money. Same with Clark Barrington. Now, after what I read today, it sounds like Braden Cosper and Harris LaChance have, in an article in the Deseret News, said that they're done, that this is their last year. And unfortunately also from, again, the social media Cougar board, that this may be Peyton Wilgar's last year too. That makes me sad because I think he's a phenomenal player and I think he has the ability to play at the next league, I think at the next level. If he leaves this year, I'm guessing he's maybe going to be an undrafted free agent and they're going to be fighting to make it squad. But unfortunately, with that injury that he suffered this year and kind of seems like maybe some animosity, some bad blood, we may have seen Peyton Wilgar for the last time. And that's unfortunate. Now, also a little thing I want to show here is what I've got going on here. I've got obviously positions listed here. I listed the player starts and what their rating was, recruit ranking coming out of high school, and the number of stars that they have, just as a little aside. Next, we have the sophomore class. These are the guys who have another 2 years full of eligibility. And then the freshmen here. Now, obviously with COVID, you've got 3 different classes in essence bunched up, and that's why the list of players who still have at least 3 years of eligibility entering the year are in this list. And then clear over here, we have the players that are in the pipeline for BYU. Obviously, many of these individuals from the 20, 21, and 22 class are on their missions, and we'll see the 2020 class filter in this year. All right, so that's the rough go around of what we got coming up for senior year. Now, basically, everyone on these 2 lists here are going to be honored, except for Chaz Ayu and Malik Moore, who have made it pretty clear they're going to come back next year. So it isn't going to be their last year. So at this point, they'll get another year in. Again, everyone else here pretty much who has a degree, some of these guys are in their 5th year, are going to go. Jaron Hall, obviously we expect that he's going to get drafted. Again, it's a pretty deep class. There's a lot of really good talent that's probably going to come out. He might fall down into the 5th round. But as a quarterback, I think you go no matter. If you think you're going to make it in at any point, you go. You could be a Tom Brady drafted in the 7th round. You sit for a year or 2, and then you come in because quarterbacks always get hurt. And then you play when given that chance, and maybe you excel. And I think that's probably what Jaron's going to be looking at. I don't know that he's going to be competing for any starting position. But I think he's got the talent to play, start off as backup, and maybe as he progresses a little more and gets that opportunity, he could be a starter in the future. All right, now what I want to do is let's go ahead and kind of talk next year's squad. It's this way too early, but we want to know who's coming back next year because unfortunately this year didn't go quite as well as we thought. But let's take a quick sneak peek at next year's possible starters. All right, to give you an idea what do we got here, we got the players, again, their position, the number of starts that they've got, their rating, their star, and the years of eligibility that they have. As you can see, I've got the players who I believe have redshirted this year. We got A. Samoa, Logan Fano, Malik Moore, Chaz Ayu, and Gunnar Romney, who I think are going to redshirt to come back next year. Now, next year, we're going to have a brand new quarterback, somebody who hasn't started at BYU. And obviously, the front runner has got to be Jacob Conover. He's the 4-star. He's been with the program since 2020. He knows the offensive system. He's got a little bit of playing time, almost hasn't taken any snaps this year, which is unfortunate. I really thought that BYU kind of missed an opportunity by not getting him some playing time late in the games. But that's how it goes. Now, next behind him, maybe Soljay Malvi-Peters. He's the next highest rated quarterback. Again, this is just based on their ratings come out of high school. Everybody knows they're not a scientific fact, but the rating is generally a good indicator. And what I've seen from looking at all the other teams is players with a rating of 85 and above are typically your elite players that have the best chance of playing, being your starters, have the best chance of possibly playing in the NFL. If you look at, Gunnar Romney was an 88, Puka is a 94, Kingsley is a 98. These are people that we expect are going to go and play at the next level. Obviously, we do have players who come and walk on, who make the team and end up going. That happens every year. But again, we're looking at the most probable, the elite players. And sometimes they're missed, but not always. I think a lot of times they're fairly accurate when you look at other teams. Now, a dark horse that may be coming in is Cole Hagan. Cole Hagan was the quarterback at Corner Canyon who started for 2 years after Zach Wilson led the team to the state semifinals. Cole Hagan went 28-0 as a junior and senior at Corner Canyon, won 2 state titles, had a more prolific passing and run game than Zach Wilson did. He was originally committed to Yale, going to go play for a different Y, but when he got back from his mission, he decommitted from Yale, committed to BYU. He gray-shirted this fall, so he is going ahead and go full-time in January and be with the team. So I would actually look to him as a dark horse candidate. Obviously he'll need some time to get to know the system, get in the program, but I think he may have the opportunity to push Jacob Conover. So we may have a pretty decent quarterback battle. Obviously, no idea if anyone's going to transfer in. At running back, this is where BYU is going to have no experience again. So both quarterback and running back, there's not a whole lot coming back this year. So we got Jackson McChesney, Hinley Rapati, and Miles Davis. Those three are likely going to be fighting it out. Now, Jackson McChesney came in with the highest rating, but he had, unfortunately, like Chaz Ayu, has hit injuries over multiple years that have ended his season early. In the wide receiver room, if Puka, this is assuming Puka doesn't come back, Gunnar Romney will probably be number one. And then we also got Cody Epps, Chase Robertson, Keanu Hill. Keanu Hill over the last 2 years, I think, has been moving himself up on the depth chart. You've got two, this is a pretty good size. Both Keanu Hill, Chase Roberts are 6'4", Gunnar Romney 6'2", and Cody Epps at 5'11", but he's shown what Epps is excelled at is making people miss and getting those yards after catch. So the wide receiver room is going to be deep. I think we're going to be okay in that range. Again, especially if Gunnar Romney comes back, Cody Epps comes back healthy. And I would expect to see Keanu Hill possibly be the number 2 receiver. But whoever is on the field, I think with all 4 of them, again, we're going to have that problem where we have a lot of really good talent. And it's going to be difficult to get, the ball spread out. But I could see, all 4 of these guys next year going for over 400 yards and possibly 500 if we decide to air it out. At tight end, it's going to be Isaac Rex, Carter Wheat, and Ethan Erickson. Again, this is not looking at any of the 23 class coming in and competing. Obviously, no idea who's going to go on a mission, who's going to go ahead and just come in. So this is just who's on the roster at this point. Then we got to the offensive line. And actually, the offensive line took, I think, some unfair criticism. They are one of the top passing offensive line. Unfortunately, the running game just wasn't great this year. But even with 2 of the offensive linemen going to the league next year and Harris LaChance calling it a career, the line is going to look real good. Expect Kingsley to move over to the left tackle. Connor Pay, I would imagine, would stay at the center position. And then I put Lisa Letai, Campbell Barrington, and Caden Hawes. So these guys have some starts. Campbell obviously has some starts. Caden Hawes some starts. And Ty, he obviously hasn't played at BYU. This was his first year, but he played at JUCO, so he's got playing experience. He's not a freshman coming out. So I would expect the offensive line, actually, if you're looking at just the star ratings this year versus what we're going to have going into next year, it could be an upgrade. Again, still quite a bit of experience going in. Kingsley going to play in all 12 games. Connor's going to have 2 full years and then some of experience. Caden Hawes, again, a lot of starting experience. So I think the offensive line is really going to be the foundation. Them and the wide receiver room next year are going to help lead BYU going into next year. Now on the defense. In the linebacking core, I think we're going to have a great linebacking core if everyone can come back and be healthy. Chaz Ayu, he kind of plays that I guess they call it a rover between the linebacker and safety position. If he can get healthy, he's got, again, another year to get healthy. Should have Max Tooley coming back, Keenan Peely, and Ben Bywater. Now, Keenan may decide that he's done, but I don't know that. I think he would, again, improve his draft stock. I think he can play in the league if he comes back next year and maybe move up a little. And Ben Bywater, who I honestly think was the best linebacker this year outside of Max Tooley. Obviously Max got hurt and hasn't been played. Ben's been able to play, I believe, in every game. Also had 2 picks. He's the leading tackler on the team. So that's something to look for. We're going to have a very strong linebacking core. And then obviously you're going to have some guys rotating in who haven't had much playing time. That's going to be Kafusi, maybe Wilson, Romney, I believe. So expect some good things next year out of the linebacking core. The DBs, this was hard to project who's going to be, but I went basically with the guys who have some starts. Gabe Giudiali, I think, has been phenomenal. He hasn't been targeted a whole lot because I think he's basically locked down his man whenever in his position. And I like his aggressiveness. He comes up and hits. And, of course, Micah, the harpoon missile, coming in here. Again, aggressive. I love Micah's play. Now, He's had some times where he's taken some bad angles, but he's aggressive, and I love that he comes in for that run support. Again, I think he needs to put on a little weight. He's a little bit thin, but another year of in the weight room, he comes back, put on 10 pounds this offseason. I think that's going to help him, and he's going to hurt some guys if he can put on a little bit more mass, since that impact is really just about mass and velocity. You add a little bit of mass to Micah and his speed, man, he's going to hit some guys hard. I got Talon Alfrey in there. I expect him to come back. Jacob Robinson, Amin Hanneman, and Malik Moore, obviously getting that hand healthy. So I think the DB room's going to be really good. Now, when we go to the defensive line, now this year, the defensive line got maligned, right? We couldn't stop anybody in the run. We're averaging less than 1 sack a game. Again, I think that's schematic. I think after the Baylor game, we just went way too conservative, and we weren't bringing blitzes. We weren't bringing stunts very often, and that didn't help out the defensive line. Now, this could be the strength going into the Big 12, and this is why I say that. So we have Isamoah and Logan Fano, who are going to redshirt this year. Obviously, Logan tore his ACL during spring ball. He seemed to be, unfortunately, and Isamoah, hadn't heard that he had an injury, but just didn't play. Both of these guys were the top recruit in their class in 21 and 22. And you see they are 4-star talent. Now, the defensive line is losing a lot of seniors and guys with playing experience. So I think these guys are going to get a chance to play. So you got Asmo, as I said, Tyler Batty, who I think was probably the most consistent and best member on the defensive line this year. And then John Nelson, Mahi, and Gabe Summers. Apparently his name is Gumby. But they are the four with some starting talent. And another possible is this year's 2023 so far commit, Siale Esera, and he's another 4-star. So while the defensive line has been unfortunately, the weakness this year on the defensive side, it could be the strength going into the Big 12. We could have 3 4-star players on that defensive line, and that would be something amazing for BYU, because, as you know, we don't have a whole lot of 4-star talent on the team, and nobody has more than one player who's a 4-star rated player at any position group. So I like the future going in. Now, obviously, they're going to be young. They won't have any playing time, and Isara is probably going to need some time. You don't see many freshmen coming in, true freshmen coming in getting immediate playing time. But in 2 years, we could see, Asamo and Logan Fowler are going to redshirt. So they're going to have 4 years of eligibility left. Tyler Batty and John Nelson have 2. They're going to be the seniors, the upperclassmen anchoring this with Mahi and Gabe Summers. So the future looks bright, I think, at the defensive line position, which should help in a lot of areas on the defense, and should help this defense reduce the number of yards per game that we're giving up, and hopefully getting a lot more sacks. That has been, unfortunately, I think one of the weakest points is BYU not getting after the ball. So I hope you guys are all going to enjoy freezing in the game. I'm not going to be making the drive, unfortunately, this week, so I won't be able to see all of the seniors go. But I want to talk about, this group, I think, is the group this class is the group that I have loved the most at BYU. So those of you who haven't seen my videos, I went to BYU my freshman year. I tried to walk on, was not good enough to make the team. And that was way back in the 2002, 2003 school year. I started going to BYU football games my senior year of high school. The first game I went to was the Liberty Bowl in the 2001-2002 season. And then a few years ago, about 8 years ago, my dad got season tickets. And I was living in Arizona, and I lived in Texas. But in 2016, I moved back home to New Mexico. And since 2016, I have been going to multiple games every year with him. And so I've got to see some of the older class, Charles Ayu and Jake Oldroyd were in that group. I have had the opportunity to go some of the big games. So in 2019, we went to Tennessee and got that win. I was there for that. Obviously, 2020, we didn't get to go. But I've been to the Washington game. This year, I went to South Florida. I went to Oregon. I went to Las Vegas. I was there at the Baylor game. So I got an opportunity to watch a lot of football this year in person, and I loved it. So I am obviously sad to see any of these players go, but at the same time, I'm really looking forward to next year. So Cougs, I hope you enjoy this. Go ahead. If you like my video, please like, share, comment. And now that my audit season for my real job is a little bit less stressful and a little less busy, I'm going to have an opportunity to maybe put out a few more videos more than just once a week. And so we're going to go and see how that goes. So thank you guys so much. Once again, this is Chris Manning with the Royal Blue and Burnt Orange 2 podcast. See ya.